everybody. This is the Biz Meet Global live podcast every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. So we are back. This is Tommy B, and I'm going to be your host. We may have a couple other hosts that pop on. And if you remember Eric from last week's episode, he just might be able to join in. We shall see. But hey, we're gonna continue the podcast every week like this. And so far, it's looking like it might work out to continue it at this same time, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central Time. Now, please stay tuned. And remember, if you're catching this podcast, that if you just happen to be searching through Podbean, or you're looking through another podcasting service, you can find more information about us on our podcast website, which is at bizmeetglobal.podbean.com. Again, that's bizmeetglobal.podbean.com. Okay, so let's get started here. So tonight's topic is going to be, as you know, we're going to talk about different business subjects, but tonight's subject related to business is something that means a little bit to me. It's kind of like your pet peeve, but it doesn't have to be a pet peeve. Just something that you think you think should be improved about a particular business or an industry. Maybe it's one you've worked for. Maybe you've worked in a particular industry and worked at several different locations, or maybe just one location, but you've been there for a while, and you see something that just you think, geez, it's almost so painfully obvious that it needs to be improved, and they just aren't improving it for some reason. Why aren't they improving it? Everybody knows it needs to be fixed, and the business would be much better off and would operate much better if they were to fix it, or at least improve it in some way. It could be a business you worked for, it could be a business you owned, and it could be a business that you just simply are aware of, maybe one that you were a customer of, you shopped at often. Any kind of business, a restaurant, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Shopping mall, a legal firm, a factory, you go on and on and on about it. I have a couple examples in mind that I've noticed, and there's a certain aspect of a couple of different types of businesses that I can mention that I think really do need improvement, and I understand why they're not doing it so well. It's not easy to do. And I'm going to come up with an example of that when we continue with this. But first, I want to give you an update real quick. I like to do it at the beginning of the show. A quick update about where we're at, of course. As you know, again, this is Tommy B, and I'll be hosting, like I said, but sometimes there may be one of our other members of our team, our business, who will be hosting or co-hosting. So they may pop on, but while we're doing this, I want you to know when I'm hosting, I'm going to be hosting from a different part of the United States every week. So you don't know where I'm going to be, and that's why part of the update is to let you know, hey, where I am, during this episode and during this week. Where's Tommy B? Where am I? Okay. For those of you who caught the podcast of the past, you can tell that you've heard me mention what I do. I'll mention it again for new listeners, and it is that I am right now a long-haul truck driver. So, and I only do these podcasts, when I'm stopped and it's on my own personal time. Like right now, I'm stopped for the evening, actually, right now my wife has come along with me. She's between jobs. She quit her job, and because she's starting a new one, and in between, the time off between the jobs, she wanted to come with me and see what it's like, and it's fantastic because she got to go on a trip, several trips with me, including one really nice one where we went all the way from South Carolina to California, and we're on our way back from that one. So that brings me to the update as far as where we are during this, on this current trip. With me being, like I said, a long-haul truck driver. Right now, on our way back, like I said, from California, we have made it to Tennessee, to Memphis, Tennessee. We're just outside of Memphis, Tennessee, on Interstate 40, heading east. So we're stopped, but when we get back going, we'll most likely, depending on what kind of orders we have from the company I'm working for right now, they may want me to head back. We needed to stay close to the Memphis area and find a place to sleep for the night. And all the truck stops in Memphis that we could get to before my time clock ran out, because as a truck driver, your time clock runs out. You've only got so much time you're allowed to drive each day before it's mandatory that you shut down for the evening, and you need a 10-hour break. And that's when that's when you get your sleep. You wake up in the morning and you could go again. You got another another full day, and when you've run out of your hours, then you need another 10-hour break. So it's a daily reset. So we had to do it. The time was running out, and we're looking, and at the time we were finished up, we reached a customer actually in Mississippi, just south of Memphis, in Byhalia, if I'm saying it right, Byhalia, Mississippi. Did a quick drop-off, and then we needed to head back and find a place. It was outside of any kind of major city areas, and so we needed to head back to where there are truck stops to find a place to sleep, because there was not much time left. Only had about an hour left, and that's not much time with a semi, because there are not many places you're allowed to park a semi for the night except for truck stops, and they're usually outside the cities. And those that are in the cities, they're all by this time of night, they are all full, and they were jammed full, especially in the cities. There's a lot more, obviously more population, more trucking going on, and a lot more truck drivers who are finding a place to sleep for the night there. So we knew it. We looked at a couple, and they were jammed up. We're running out of time, all full. We said, hey, we got to head outside the city to find a place. And man, it just so happened the nearest place was several miles outside of Memphis, and we finally found one. Had to stop real quick before that time clock ran out, and jump onto this podcast right at the last minute. So it was quite an adventure today. So given that update, again, we're here right outside of Memphis on Interstate 40 heading east. And today is May 14th of 2023. All right. And again, remember, at about the halfway of the show, we're going to be talking about our product reviews that I'll be doing, that our team will be doing, depending who it is. The last product review I did, that was Country Bob's barbecue sauce, and I mentioned that on the podcast. I'll mention it, and then I'll put up a video of it. So I posted that video on our podcast website. It's a YouTube video. It's a YouTube link, and so you can very easily go there and you can check that out and see the very first product review. We're going to be doing another one. Ideally, as I get going, I'd like to do the product reviews before the podcast and have the video already created and have it linked, so then I can talk about it at the show. It just so happened that this show, with the drive time that we had and the schedule, I could not get the product review video ready before this show. So, but either way, it's not that crucial. It'd be something I'd like to do, but let you know, I will be posting it on the podcast website here. That's what I mentioned earlier. That is at the link, the Podbean link. That is bizmeetglobal.podbean.com, and you'll see information about our show. You can see past episodes like this one is live if you're catching it right now. But it will be recorded. It'll be once it's recorded, it'll be posted on that website. And then below, if you scroll down further, you'll see the section for product reviews. And as I make videos, product review. I will be posting them on the website. Hey, is it hey, Eric? Are you with us tonight?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, fantastic. Hey,
I just signed in and I got jumped right onto your show here. I wasn't expecting that.
Hey, I was just going to text you while I was finishing up with I don't know if you were listening, but kind of doing a recap of where I am and what's going on and the updates with the website. Then that we're going to do the product reviews and then get on into the subject. And you're jumping in right at the perfect time. So everybody, this is you remember Eric from last week?
How can they forget?
Yes. How can anybody forget? You made the show. You made the show awesome last week. Seriously, it was fantastic because you were on it. But real quick to finish what I was saying about that, because it's perfect that you're on right now, is because we're getting to the subject matter is basically updated everybody on the location where I'm at and everything, and then the product reviews we're going to be doing. And I don't have the product review ready, as I'm mentioning to everybody, for this week yet, but I will. And I mentioned where I'll be. Everybody, I'll be posting it on the website. Okay, so until then, take a look at it in the next day or so if you're interested. But the product review, when we get to that, that'll be at about halfway or so part of the show. So, and I'll mention what product I'm going to review, and it's going to be a funny one. It's interesting. I'm picking one that's going to be pretty comical, Eric. And I've been looking around for different products, and I found one. I said, should I really do it? Should I really do it? And when I mention it, you're going to be like, oh, my God. I mean, you'll be like, I'll give you a teaser, everyone. It's like I can't really do a video of me using it. It just would not be appropriate. So I'll leave it at that. But your mind's going to go crazy. Everyone is thinking all this dirty stuff, and it's not. It's not at all. So it's just, I'll leave it at that. But right now, this part of the show, we're just talking about the subject matter. The subject matter is, what do you think needs to be improved in a business you've worked for, an industry, something that's almost like a pet peeve is what I was mentioning, kind of to recap. A pet peeve, something you've just seen throughout your life, and you think, gosh, why don't they fix that? That business would be so much better if they would fix it. And maybe it's difficult to fix, and maybe it's just something that people just don't fix it because they just keep doing what they're doing. I've got a couple in mind, and I thought before I say that, before I go on about that, I thought maybe we could hear your thoughts, Eric, or I'll give you an example one that I'll bring up, but I won't go on about it yet, to kind of give you an idea what I'm talking about. It could be anything, but for example, one I realized, and I'll mention the industries afterwards, but is training. Training programs in a couple of industries really just suck. They really do suck. And I shouldn't say that they're horrible, but they're so usually just bad. And if they were improved, it would make the business so much better. The new employees would probably stick around. And those, even if it doesn't drive them away, they would also perform a lot better, which should keep them around. And I'll mention those couple industries and go on about it. But that's kind of that's one aspect. There's many others I could go on, like pet peeves, but that's one that's been bugging me for years in one industry in particular. And now in my own industry, where I'm working now, I can mention that I'm starting to see that same thing. But I'll bet you in other industries, the training, it's possible, in other words, to make it better. They just don't for whatever reason. And it just makes it so difficult. So anyways, that's one example. Yeah. But so are there any, you got the... Is there anything you've thought about certain businesses or industries, and whether you've worked for them, you've just watched them, you've shopped at them, you've owned them, however, you just came across, you watched on TV, anything, you just think, there's something that really should be improved about that.
Yeah, when I was in construction management, I was a competitive estimator, and there's a lot of different ways of estimating time, material, and getting a solid number for these construction projects. And, a lot of times when you go from one company to another, they all have different philosophies and outlooks on how you get to your final number. Some are unit price based on historical values, and historical knowledge, things that they track. Some will create, kind of like it's more, instead of using like a unit number is really kind of an easy way to plug a number, but not every job is the same. So you might create like a unit number, meaning per linear foot, or, like when you get in a demo, it's really tough. So you have to figure out, how many guys on the job, how long is it going to take? Do you have like things like infection control if you're working in a hospital or something, or, if you're working industrial, do you have shutdown time with the big three? There's all different ways of collecting data and putting it into hours to have a competitive bid. And like I said, when you're working between companies, they all have different philosophies. And, part of the training is how you look at the project, and you got to be open-minded about it. And you got to look at the project itself and ask yourself, does a unit number fit in this estimate?
So you're focusing on, just for everybody and myself too, you're focusing not on a particular application of it. It's just the idea of using a unit number to track progress or
in other words, think about if you had to demo an entire floor of a hospital, and let's say there's 20,000 square feet, and let's say there's patients that are surrounding that floor in different areas. There's a lot of things you got to take into consideration, like how you're going to get the material out. How are you not going to disturb the patients? How are you not going to infect the patients with dust or noise or make them uncomfortable?
Oh, yeah.
So with training, the more that you they teach you about opening your eyes to all the different ways of coming up with a number. You can double, triple, quadruple check your number, your final number with units, with, manpower, with historical data, with whatever, and to make sure that, you have a good number going in, that you're covered, meaning that when you submit that number, you've had 2 or 3 or 4 people look at it. You might have your boss look at it. You might have the project manager look at it. You might have the superintendent look at it and say, are we covered with these numbers? And that was always something that I had to do with the different jobs that I've had. I worked on the East Coast, and I've worked here in the Detroit area doing heavy industrial. And, the more, the more avenues you look at, the more outlets you look at to get those numbers, the more that they agree with each other, that you're covered. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. And for everybody,
so I think training goes into that, and just being having that company come back to you and say, this is how well because people here in Detroit work a lot different than people on the East Coast or West Coast or down south.
Oh, yeah.
It's nothing against the people. It's just how they're trained and what they're used to. Up here, when you bid stuff against the big three, you're given a schedule. Okay, you've got a month to finish this project. If you don't get it done in a month, meaning 30 days, 31 days, whatever it is, whatever time allotment you have, then you have liquidated damages. So if your overhead, if your profit is $100,000 in that job, but you have $10,000 a day liquidated damages, if you're not completed, that profit can go away really quick.
Oh, yeah.
And that all goes back to training.
Well, I can relate to what you're saying about the numbers in the industry of, say, customer service, call centers. I've worked in the past. Years ago, I worked at I think 2, maybe 3. One of them was there a very, very short time, but 2 for a noticeable period of time. And it was customer service. One was for long-distance phone service, and another one was for a VoIP service.
Yeah.
And that was like, tech support, but like the beginning, the tier 1, it's not the complicated stuff. So you're just dealing with the first callers that, can't figure out how to turn their device on, or the simple stuff before it gets to the real tech support, So you're dealing with the general public calling in. But whatever one was, the call centers now, actually, I'm thinking customer service. I did sales, and that was a third one, but it was still in a call center, so it was very similar how they rated everything. It was all by numbers, and because when you're on that phone, that's your time clock actually at your little cubicle when you're supposed to be on the phone. And when you click, go after lunch, like you're back to work, you're live. I mean, the phone can ring and it just beeps and then someone's there. You don't have a control. You don't you can, get a breath and then answer the phone. It calls you and there it is. And you hear the beep and you're on. You don't have, so the whole thing was all about numbers. The amount of time you spent, if somebody, if you had to document a call and they said, okay, they have to go and they hang up, you don't want the phone to ring again because as soon as you hang up, you're available. You hit something called after call is what it's usually called at call centers I've seen and heard from others. And it may be a different term, but it's the same thing. It's like an after call. It delays the next call coming in so you can finish documenting it. And you got to document everything. And so the reason I mentioned is those numbers, that's a certain amount of time. And so the amount of time you're on that phone call, and then there's the after call time, and then there's the amount of different dispositions you have to say, was this call related to this, to that, and everything was about the numbers, and you were evaluated on a weekly or biweekly basis about your reducing your after call times, reducing your call times, and you might even have, and it's an example of what I experienced. Was you could have had a caller say, you know what, you solved my problem. Thank you so much. This is the best experience I've had. And the supervisor could hear it, but say, your call time was a little too long. And, and they'd still get down to that micromanagement, and you'd think, okay, yeah, there's something wrong, like you're saying, with relying on the numbers. They're fantastic because the one call center, it was over 100 agents, so they need something like that to see what's going on, and they can graph it all out, and they can see if people are being taken care of. But then something gets missing with the personal touch because it's customer service. You know what I mean? You're dealing with human beings, and the goal is to have a live person, make them feel good, and solve their problem. So if that happened, that should be, hey, they made that comment. Your numbers are perfect on that call. You won, but they don't do it. It's kind of like a post office thing where the stress is there. So I can relate to that about the numbers.
What's funny is
the contrast with
I worked for one of the largest banks in the world, and I was selling mortgages on the East Coast and on the West Coast, primarily like in New York City and San Francisco. And the way, if somebody called into this bank, it would be routed to, I think it was Malaysia. Then you had Malaysia people screening the phone call, and they would transfer it back to us. And the connections weren't always that good. They were staticky. They'd be breaking up. It was so funny. You're talking about a bank that's probably worth billions of dollars, and there's roosters crowing in the background. It was so borderline bizarre. So here you are, you could be worth millions of dollars with this bank. You're looking to get a mortgage for maybe yourself or your son or relative or something, whatever, trying to find out what you have to offer as a bank. And there's somebody that is answering the phone that, your first guess might not be from America. Doesn't matter. The accent doesn't matter, but I'm just saying. And then all of a sudden you have a rooster crowing in the background, and you're like, "What? Why
like a real rooster
like this?" Yeah, it's like you can hear him going. I don't know if it was
like not on purpose.
Rooster. I think because everybody works from home, and it was during COVID, and however they were set up, these people working from home. But they had like the windows open, and they're very professional. But you can hear in the background what was going on. Just like when I logged in today, I had the TV blaring, and I turned the TV off. It was kind of the same thing. It's like here you are, somebody maybe from New York or San Francisco, worth a lot of money. Doesn't matter if it's $1 or millions of dollars, and you're getting routed in and screened through somebody that has a rooster crowing in the background.
That's funny. That's funny. That reminds me. I was when I was staying for that year in China there at my at our place in China, my wife and I, the place we have, which we haven't been able to see because the pandemic, and it's a small place. You think of it like an apartment, a couple bedrooms, but you own the inside, so it's different. But it's in like a 20-some story building. I forget how many stories, but right there. You're in we were kind of on the edge of an industrial area where you would not expect it. But I'd be woken up in the morning hearing a rooster crowing. I'm thinking, where the heck is a rooster at in these city streets and like the factories nearby, like across the street and down the street, nothing. There's no countryside. You're thinking, where the heck is a rooster? But then one day we were walking down the street and going down to get some like takeout food, really good food. And, small
some good Irish food.
Yeah. It was good Irish food there. It was actually really good.
I love Asian food.
Oh yeah, anything, it was good
stir
soup.
Fry, anything. I think I'm from Asia in another life. I love it.
It was.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah. They had the wonton soup, but it was not the kind you get in like buffet places here. It was the wontons were like literally almost 2 inches long each and like almost block-like, and they were loaded with the filling, and you're like, oh my God, this is like worth it. And it was so good, it was just one of those, it wasn't handmade, I don't think, but it was good enough and it was inexpensive, cheap. You just walk down the block. But as I walked down the block, I happened to look inside in like a small like factory, kind of broken down, like a little workshop factory, and almost like a logging workshop. I couldn't even tell what it was. And there's a rooster in a cage. And I'm like, there's that mother, I'm like, there he is. That's the one. They got him in a cage out there. It's like, what the heck is that? Yeah, I think Hutch is Hutch is trying to...
Yeah, Hutch, are you on right now?
Oh, there he goes. He looked like he was live.
Can you hear us?
He said he was going to. He was in a difficult position tonight, and he was going to try if he could. If he was in a place where he might not be able to have the best connection, and so I saw him come on and go off, and he said if he can, he's trying up there. See, it looks like he's connected up again. He might be having trouble. Hey, Hutch, can you hear us now?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Oh,
yep. You got talk louder or get closer to your microphone.
I'm right on top of it, but I don't know if...
I remember last time, Eric, when I called into your podcast, which if everybody remembers is Low Standards and Pours on Podbean. The first time I called in, I used my cell phone without a headset, and you could barely hear my voice, I think.
Yeah, you gotta be on a headset. That's the best way.
And so I know
I wanted to jump on because I was hoping to be on at the beginning, and I couldn't do it with work, and it was in a tough situation.
And Hutch. Hey, Hutch, just so you know, you sound like a little voice that's like 100 miles down a cave. Like literally, like if you when you hear the recording, you'll say, "Oh wow!" Like you would have to literally like stop everything in every room just to hear. It's amazing. I don't know why it's so low without the headset. I mean, you still got the microphone on the phone.
I'll let you guys get back to doing what you're doing.
Hey, that's better actually, right there.
Yeah, whatever you're doing, that's better. It sounds. Do you have a question tonight?
Yeah, but your laughing right there was also louder. Are you on speaker or?
No, I'm just yelling into the phone pretty much.
That's good. That's actually hearable. That's audible right there.
Yeah, we can hear you a lot better.
Well, that's good.
What business are you in, Hutch?
Oh, I'm doing great. How about you?
We're doing good. What do you do for a living?
Oh, I work for the state.
What state? What state? What do you do?
I work in a prison.
Oh, okay.
Well,
are you a prison guard or administration or?
I work in the powerhouse, the boiler, the power. I'm a power plant operator.
Oh, gotcha.
I've just done a lot of stuff. I've known him. He's been when I met him, he was my general manager at a Chrysler dealership, And so, yeah, you just recently got out of the car business because it drove you bananas. But Hutch has been in the car business for a long time, and mortgage business.
Long time. Car business, the mortgage industry. I know.
Forget the mortgage business.
Yeah,
I've been in that
understand.
part too.
I had my own mortgage company, and then 2007, 2008 came around, and didn't have it anymore.
Well, Hutch, on a quick question, what are while we're on the subject, what are some of the, like, a pet peeve you could think of in an industry, whether you've worked for it or not, or you've owned it or something, or anywhere you've just seen it out there throughout life, you say that really needs to be improved in that business. It's something that really, and if it kind of bugs you in a little way, like if they improved it, it would make it just so much better.
Oh boy.
I mentioned part of one of mine, and I didn't go on about it yet. I was saving it. Let you guys kind of get.
Hey, let me ask Hutch something. Hutch, are you familiar with Rocket Mortgage or Quicken Loans? Now,
yes.
my big beef with them is, there's things that they do very well, but they have a lot of deceptive advertising. I remember back in the day, they had the All-American loan, and it was 100% financing. I think it was interest only, and there was commercials all over the place for buying a house interest only at 100%. And I'm like, that is so deceptive. You're not doing the American consumer any good. You're getting them into a tough spot, and you're forcing them to refi in probably 2 or 3 years. And I thought it was really deceptive. And I think that's one of the things that's always really bugged me about Quicken or Rocket. I don't know how Quicken and Rocket separate these days, or if they're one and the same, if there's different names. I have no idea.
But last I knew, I know the guy. Well, I don't know him personally. They're out of Detroit. The owner of that of Rocket, and I don't know if he owned Quicken or not. But
yeah, Dan Gilbert.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he pretty much revamped downtown Detroit. Buying everything up and rebuilt it. And I've been to Detroit, and it's beautiful now.
I've got a buddy that works he was working for a major construction company right in Detroit, doing a lot of their work, a lot of their build outs and stuff. And he said Dan Gilbert's got a table with all the buildings of downtown Detroit, and they're all labeled which ones that he owns or his investment group owns, and how they're renovating each one of them. And it's pretty incredible. I think without Dan Gilbert, it may have taken longer to get to where Detroit's at today, but it is amazing. I've been going to Detroit all my life. My parents used to take me down there when I was a kid, and look at Detroit 30, 40 years ago, and you look at Detroit today, and it's really transforming into a beautiful city. The crime is getting pushed out, and the development's going on, and everything they build. This is the cool thing, is everything they build. So if they build, let's say, a housing unit, it can't be all high end. It has to be multi-use, or I shouldn't say multi-use. It has to be like I'm not sure. I'm drawing a blank on the terminology, but it has to be like middle income, middle upper income, and then upper income. Everything that's being developed has to incorporate, or at least some of them have to incorporate, multi-income families. And that's cool because it gets everybody living together, and it doesn't separate or segregate all the people from the rich from the poor. And then the other thing is that they're trying to take 375 that cuts right through Detroit, that separates the city from kind of more the neighborhood. They're going to fill that in and then develop that so you can actually, they're trying to bring the community together. And they're trying to bring the lower income with the higher income and join them more as a community rather than segregated. So that's pretty cool.
Well,
There's a lot of things.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that also to update Hutch on this, Hutch, and everyone who's listening. Eric and I grew up together. We lived across the street from each other as little kids. Like kindergarten. Literally, we went to kindergarten together, and then they walked to elementary school. So I've known them. You know, there were periods that when we were adults we didn't talk for a while, but we lived in that same neighborhood right outside of Detroit. You know, when I Google it now, I realize it's only like 20 miles outside of the center of Detroit. And that's not
I can get to Detroit in 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's not that far. It's amazing we were that safe.
No.
We were like just in the safe zone where you could walk at night, and it seemed like we were, you know, a lifetime away from all that. But, I've been away, though, since like 95. But, Eric, you've been there the whole time in the area. Or at least you moved away for a little bit, you know, for bits of time. But you're more current. Yeah. You went out east, I think, for a little bit, but you're back, and so you have all the knowledge. I know my sister is living in our same neighborhood again. She's been there, but I myself, like I said, 95, and it's changed a lot. I'll be anxious to see what it's like. But before I forget,
Plymouth has really expanded. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Before I forget, I'm going to have to, before we get back on the subject, we got to talk about the. Because it's about halfway through the show, and it's a little past. Is the product review. So we want to get back on the subject, of course, of what our pet peeve is, and I'll mention what mine is too, and kind of throw it in the mix. And I mentioned it's training, but the product review is, and we don't talk too much about it. We'll save that. The majority of it everyone can find on the YouTube channel, but I'll post it on the Podbean website, which is bizmeetglobal.podbean.com, and biz is spelled like B-I-Z. And then MEET, like business meeting and meetups, and then global, of course, GLOBAL. So bizmeetglobal.podbean.com, and go down further, scroll down, you'll be able to see some of the links as I post them. That'll be the video, but on here I'll just mention a few words about it. And the one I haven't done it yet. Ideally, I'll get them on as quick as I can, for this show every week. But I will post it. When I get that YouTube video created, I'll post it on the Podbean website. But okay, the product I'm gonna do. Now, if you remember, last week was Country Bob's barbecue sauce. So I'm showing we could do almost anything that could be on the marketplace, anything like that, pretty much. And that could be from vehicles to hardware tools to food items to frozen food to ingredients. There's so many things you could sell on an international marketplace. Think of anything, just about anything that could be shipped, mailed, anything. There's so many products. But this one, I have a special little, I thought, okay, why not make it a little comical? It is a product. There is a definite use for it. And I could give an honest review. And if only I could show you now, but you'll have to wait till the video comes. And as I mentioned, I can't show myself using it. It would just be inappropriate and not family friendly. So what is it? It is. Let me shine the light so I can get more information right off the product here. And I picked this up at a fantastic truck stop. My trainer said, "You're gonna need one." Okay, if you can guess what it is. It is the pea jug. It's literally the pea jug. That's what it's called. I can't believe they're probably making a bunch of money on this. It's a jug that you pee in. So if you're a hunter, maybe you're law enforcement and you're on a stakeout and you can't get out of the vehicle, you don't have a toilet, or typically a truck driver, because that's so common, you can't get out of your truck, it's pouring rain, you don't want to walk all the way. It's like the size of the parking lot. It's like a Walmart parking lot at the truck stop. You got to go pee at 3 in the morning, and you're tired, or it's pouring rain at the same thing, man. Or you're out in the middle of nowhere, you just can't do it. There you go. You got the pee jug. People are peeing in bottles, and that's just. I can't believe somebody actually made a usable one. But my trainer, when I was in training, everyone who's followed this knows that I just recently got out of training. He said, "You're going to need one." And I'm like, I'm not using one. I'll just go pee outside, I'll just step out of the truck and I'll pee outside. He goes, well, you should have one on handy. And so I got one, listened to him, didn't use it for probably a month. And then, of course, I had to go so bad, and he was driving, and it was pouring rain outside. And, of course, you don't want to step outside. I'm like, oh, my God, I'm going to break in the virgin pee jug. And I got to actually open it. And so what's so special about this thing? It's not just a bottle. It's got a lid that's like, what is that, like 3 inches across? Something like that. So So it's got a giant opening.
For any of you people who have big feet.
Well, no, it's for aiming. It's literally for aiming because
gotcha,
you're in the middle of the night and you can't see anything. You're in your truck and you're like, and you got a Pepsi bottle or something. Man, there's no way that thing's
forget it.
It's going to be all over the place. So they literally designed it wide enough so you can't miss, and you can just put that guy can put it. You can get it in there.
Junior.
Yeah, you can get it in there, and it's like it's sealed. And it's hard to miss. And that's the whole purpose. You're like, my God, it was so simple. What a genius thing. There's a huge need for all over it. It's not just for truckers. And they claim that the way it is, the seal is good enough to keep out odors. And I've tried it, and guess what? There's no odor until you open it. And then when you open it, oh, my God. So everyone, you're going to laugh. That's the product review you're going to see.
So if you love asparagus, you don't have to worry about anything.
That's why I could
Honey,
not show.
It's asparagus again tonight.
Oh yeah, and the lid seals nicely, so if the truck moves around and it tips over, nothing goes wrong with it. I've tried it, and it's a neat shape. It's a strange shape, so it's flat on the sides and on the bottom, almost a square-like jug with an obvious handle. And you can set it upright, and it stands up upright. But if it tips over, the seal is so good, you cannot smell anything. You could drop it, and it will not break open. And easy to pour out. So easy to clean. Now it's an advertisement, but that's why. I'm going to do a review. You'll see a picture on the YouTube. So anyways, that's the weekly.
Dishwasher safe?
Yeah, I believe it is dishwasher safe. And let's see. It says, with odor seal and spill-proof lid. Made in the USA. And I love their little logo. It says the pee jug, and it says, in quotes, "'cause you can't pee everywhere." It says,
I kept Snapple in business way back in the day when I was delivering cabinets for a company. Like, how come you always drinking Snapple? It's like, well, never mind.
Well, it says the
wide mouth.
Perfect for hunting, fishing, and trucking. Of course, it could be anybody who's stuck somewhere and they don't want to have to, and then you can just pour it out later on. But unfortunately, in trucking,
well, yeah, you guys have a big commitment. When you're on the road that much, you don't want to pull over. It's like you got to get creative, right?
Yeah, and you're on the highway most of the time.
Natural thing you got to do.
Yeah, and you're on the highway most of the time. I mean, that's rough to pull over. I mean, when you pull over, it's hard to get back on the highway. If there's traffic, it takes like a quarter mile to get back up to speed, and cars, you could get hit from behind. As you're trying, and it's very dangerous to do. So you just pull off on like an exit ramp or pull over somewhere, and then you usually step outside if it's like grassy or something. But I mean, that's the reality of it. But you don't always want to do that. And if it's pouring rain or snowing or horrible, or you're just somewhere you can't pee outside, like a parking lot somewhere, it's like you got that, and then you can save it till you can pour it out. But anyways. Didn't mean to go on about that. That's the product review that I'm going to do. It's going to be a kind of a comical one, but I had to do it. I was staring at me in the truck, and I thought, why not? It actually is useful, and I found a real use for it, and maybe someone will get a kick out of it. But hey, I was going to mention, if you guys want, what my pet peeve is on the training thing, real quick. And the training industry, and Hutch, to update you, Eric, and I mentioned he was a general manager where I worked. We worked at a couple dealerships together. Training in the automotive business for me was one of the worst. It's there's some decent training, but it's one of those that it seems like it's impossible for them to do good training. But it seems like it's one of those, you think if you like the business and you want it to improve, you really want them to be able to fix that. It's like, my God, if they would just, that's how my mind works. Like, hey, there's something that can be fixed. I like to see the problems and kind of see what can they fix in the operation and make it better. And training is something that, it's basically one of those, in sales, let me be specific, I forgot to mention that. A dealership has a lot of different employees and different functions. The training in the other areas, Hutch would know more about than I do. I was in sales, but Hutch was a general manager over all the departments, so like even service, the whole thing, right, Hutch? And so you would know, Hutch, about the training and the other responsibilities and departments at the dealerships. But for training and sales, I've worked for a lot of dealerships, and unfortunately, and every single one of them was the same thing. They use the people they have do the training are also the people who need to be doing the deals. And so when a deal comes in, a customer comes in and they need help with it, they got to run out of the training room. They get interrupted on a constant basis. And if they set aside time, and some of them with a manager, who that's usually who it is, the manager does it because they have the experience, then that manager will they'll spend time with you for a day, but it's not consistent throughout the program. They're gone the next day because there's deals going on, and they get pulled away. So you don't have the consistency. Someone else will step in, and they're doing something different. And pretty soon they just get frustrated and say, well, here, read all this stuff, and here, watch this video. And you're watching videos of people doing it. And in the training on the job, it's one of those things you can't train exact because every customer is different. It's sales. I mean, you can only give certain skills. I've heard of these mysterious dealerships out there that have great training that actually works. That actually, and I'm being a little.
Well, that's where all their business starts, right? With the salespeople. If you don't have salespeople, you don't have business.
Yeah, but they're the most expendable, and that's service is a big part of the dealership. Hutchkin, you could talk a lot more about that than I do. It's like I think that's their real bread and butter, maybe. So you can tell the salespeople come and go, but the training, they end up just getting thrown in. If they don't survive, they're like, it's just not meant for it. When you hear about these other people, there's other dealerships. I met one guy, he was in sales, and he said, I worked for a dealership, they had actually good training. A lot of salespeople agree. It's like it's sink or swim, and it's kind of a pride thing. Like they like that sink or swim. But in an industry, if you're the owner, you think, I wonder how many people could be good at sales that we're hiring that just didn't get that training, and they would be perfect for today's customers because today's customers are different than yesterday's, and today's don't want to be sold. So now it's a process.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I've probably owned, and I'm not bragging, it's only because my father worked for General Motors, and I know your father worked for Ford, but I've probably had 25 cars in my life. I get a car every couple years, and I had a lot of GM cars, and I've had a lot of Hondas and stuff. But what surprises me is I'll go to the Honda dealership, and I'll poke around and I'll ask them, what's new and upcoming? What's the new Honda Accord going to look like? What's the new Honda Passport going to look like? And they have no clue. Like, I am more up to speed on what's going on, what's upcoming, what's going to be introduced in 2023 or 24, 25. Is it going to be an EV? Is it going to be a hybrid? Is it going to be whatever? But, it's funny how some of these salespeople just don't do their job. In other words, if I go to a dealership and I ask them, because I'm looking to get rid of my Honda Passport and I might get into a full-size Chevy truck, when I go to that Chevy dealer, I want to be told exactly, okay, these are all your models, this is the engine size, these are the miles per gallon, and these are the amenities, and this is what you have to choose from. If we don't have it on the lot, we'll get it for you, because back in the day, if they don't have it on the lot, they can do dealer trade, right? So you get, the trade, whatever. I said, I'm not in a hurry. Just let me know as soon as you get it. Give me a call, whatever. But some of these salesmen don't know what they're doing. It's like, you're here to make a living. You should know everything about a Honda. You should know everything about the car you're selling, and they just don't.
Well, I can actually answer, kind of give. Hutch, are you still there? Can you hear? Or?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, just trying to make sure I can see, but I don't know if you're still having audio issues. But yeah, if you're, and you could comment on this too, because he's worked for a long time in the car business. But for me, I noticed that it's kind of it's one of those when you first as a salesperson go to work at a dealership, they tell you exactly what you said, Eric. You need to know these things, but if you spend time learning those things, you're not out there selling. And you're not out in the front because you have no customers. You rely, in the current industry, in the past especially, you rely on the fresh people walking in the door. Now it's changing to the internet, so things are really changing. But you have to be chasing those leads, and you have to be learning about the industry at the same time. But there's some people out there who do nothing but chase the sale, and the management will get at least some level of management. However they have it structured, will say you need to be doing your your product training from the manufacturer. Like if it's Dodge or something, they'll have training. Each one of the manufacturers from the factory will have training that you need to be quote unquote certified. And then you get your bonuses, where not through the dealership, but through the factory. They'll have bonuses on certain cars they want to push, incentives, and they put it on a little card for you. And sometimes it's nice. You get like an extra $500. That's pretty rare, though. Usually $100,
Yeah.
Depending on the model, $200. But however badly they want to get rid of it, they'll and it's separate from your dealership pay. It's not taxed or anything like that. You got to, it's totally separate. And some people make good money, but they'll say you need to be doing these things. But the people who chase nothing but the sales, they get more sales. They don't even know that much about the vehicles, and the managers are really happy because they're pushing cars out the door, and they end up winning. They're the ones who get the.
Yeah.
So it's really rare to find someone who can do that balance, who's dedicated enough to know the products and be out there chasing. And I saw a few people. They were really good at it. They'd look at that stuff on their phone while they're sitting outside waiting to catch people. But then it depends on the dealership. Some people they have the phone ring. Whoever picks up that phone at their extension fast enough, and that dealership operates different. They don't have a whole lot of walk-ins. So if you're not sitting close enough to a phone, you're missing out on most of them. And they're like, oh well. And at the end of the day, the manager just looks, how many cars have you sold? And if you haven't sold that many, there's the pressure right there. And like after a while, you begin to say, does my product knowledge is not where my pressure comes from. I can deal with the customer, and I'll learn how to BS my way through not knowing anything by saying, I'm the new guy, and they love it. But you'll need to learn that very few customers are irritated overall that you don't know. It's usually the aficionados or the people who really are into the vehicles, like you. You want that salesperson to know all the details, but very few. It's like 1 out of 10, and the others they just want. They don't even know what's going on. They don't even know anything about vehicles. Well, you could just point to the same old stuff that's in every single vehicle, and have never seen the car before. And if you're a good car salesperson, you're just asking the right questions, and you're thinking, if I sell this, yes, then the management's off my back. I'm making money, all that kind of stuff, and then later on, I'll start learning about the products. But as soon as you sit down at your desk, that's when the customers come in. You're like, I'm doing my training, and like I just missed a whole bunch of people. And the smart, so it's
this is my point, and I think maybe Hutch can.
But I agree with you
sympathize
too.
with this, but when people call in to the bank I was working for, and if you don't know what you're talking about, you're going to lose that customer. In other words, these customers want to know that you have all the answers and you're comfortable with all the answers. They don't want to hear, well, I have to talk to my manager, or I'm not sure about that, or I have to research that for you. And I think, at least from my point of view, it's the same thing with car sales or anything in sales.
Not necessarily.
Going to be
honest, it's not for some customers. It is. I think Hutch, you could we could talk about that. It's like there's I noticed that because I was new to a lot of dealerships, and they love the new guy who doesn't know what's going on because they know they're going to have to deal with management anyways. They're like, maybe I can get a good deal off this guy. But it really is. I found out it's the foreign car buyers especially. They want you to know everything about it. Typically, the Chevy and the Ford people, they're not so much, and GMC not as much, unless it's a truck, or you're a car guy. Then you want. So it's a specific type of buyer, like you, and they don't like it. But it is. I agree with you though. On a lot of products, you do need to know your stuff. But and you'll be a better car salesman if you do. But if you don't. There's a lot you could get away with. I mean, you could BS your way through it, and if you're friendly and they like you, they're thinking, okay, because half of the other salespeople are shysters, and they're like, they know the car, but I just don't like that guy. I know he's going to try to rip me off, so I'd rather have the unknowledgeable new guy who's friendly, and he doesn't care how much he makes. He's just going to get a sale. He's lucky to have me as a customer, and you'd be surprised how many people are like that. So what I did when I was new is I stayed away from the vehicles that people like you wanted people to know all about. And it's like, I just stayed with the ones that, like the minivans, they sell fast and it's easy to talk about. You don't need to be the tech person. But if you go towards the people who like to customize things, a lot of the Toyotas, a Scion, there's options, and trucks. Oh man, you got to know your stuff. Or you get the farmers, the other people like, you don't know what you're talking about. Can I talk to someone who knows what they're talking about? And so I agree with you exactly. It's a specific type of customer, and when I'm new to a place, I had to stay away from them. I'd rather get help from somebody and split the deal because, like, he's irritated with me. Happened quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, no, I've gotten a few salesmen that don't know how to write up a deal. They can't tell me anything about the truck, whatever, blah blah, and it's frustrating. It's like, you have a truck, you have so many options, you have so many engine sizes that come with so many options. What this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want to. I never tell them what I want to spend, but you tell me what it's going to cost to lease this vehicle, and they fumble around. They got to get management approval, and it's like, okay, how many of these things have you actually sold? In other words, like, I've talked to these people, and I'm like, my cousin just bought a Trail Boss, Chevy Trail Boss, and I'm assuming a Trail Boss comes in one package with certain options, and if you sold 5 or 10 of those things, you have an idea of what they're going to cost. I'm like, give me a range. If I put down nothing, and if I roll on my costs in, so I'm sign and drive, what is it going to cost me per month for a lease on a Trail Boss? And give me the basic options. Just give me a ballpark range. 500 a month, 600 a month, 700 a month, whatever. But then they fumble around. They can't answer the questions. They got to get approvals, and it's kind of frustrating because I think as a consumer, we know that this is my question. Let me ask you this, and this is kind of getting off the subject a little bit, but as a salesman, a car salesman or truck salesman, how much room do you guys have to negotiate? In other words, if the car costs $50,000 and you sell it for $55,000, do you guys get a kickback with that? Do you guys get bonuses based on that? Can that be done?
If it costs $50,000?
Yeah. In other words, why is it so complicated to come up with a basic monthly payment based on a purchase price? That's what I don't understand. Like, why do they have to fumble around and figure out, ask their financial, the financial guy and all this blah blah blah. When, like, I've been told, like, take like the price of the truck, and there's like a certain equation that you have to go through, and it will get you within like $100 of the lease price based on the options. Well, when you ask that, it's like it's a big deal. It's like, I don't know, I got to do this, got to do that, blah blah.
One question would be that would make a big separation, or a big change in the answer would be: are you new or used? There's a huge.
Well, of course, new lease, a new lease.
Well, new lease are.
In other words, let me back up again. So when we're selling mortgages, and if somebody's looking for a mortgage for $300,000, and they're putting 20% down, and the current mortgage rate is 6%, I can get them in a ballpark right away within about 5 minutes talking to them, exactly what their payment's going to be based on principal, interest, tax, and insurance.
So as long as if you have those questions
I can figure that out. It doesn't matter if it's Minnesota or if it's Texas.
So if they came up to you, in other words, if they came up to you and just pointed to the house and said, "Hey, what's the monthly payment on this thing?" Where would you go with that?
It's not that difficult, and Hutch knows that. I mean, he's been in the mortgage business. If you're selling a home, $300,000 in Austin, Texas, you
couldn't answer that question.
Taxes.
But I was saying is you can't answer that. You couldn't answer that question if someone just walked up you'd never met and said, "Hey, what's the monthly price on this house?" And we get in the car business, you would get that all the time. It's like, "Hey, what's the monthly payment on this thing?" You're like, "Well, let's sit down. There's a few questions that need to be answered first."
Yeah, but if you have a purchase price, right? So your purchase price is $50,000, and their credit is $760.
Yeah, but you don't know their credit yet. That's what I'm saying. It's like you don't know anything.
I'm just saying. Let's say the guy's old school, and the guy's like, "Listen, I have never missed a payment in my life. I've got the best credit in the world, 800 plus, whatever." So you base it on $760. You base it on the purchase price. You base it on a 36-month lease. You can get them within at least $50 probably on a payment, if not
Yeah, I
$100
mean,
bucks.
first, of course, you got to have a few questions answered first, like how much money you're putting
Sure.
down, and what's your credit, what do you
Yeah,
feel that it is.
all that aside.
I know
Yeah,
one thing. One
sign
thing,
and
in the car,
drive.
one thing in the car business, I know Hutch can attest to. I don't know about mortgage business. I'd assume it's the same, but in the car business, the customers lie probably more than, or just as much as the salespeople, because they're afraid that the salespeople are lying, and the dealership is trying to. There's a balance. The dealership is trying to. Think about that. A car that person has, they want to buy a new car and they have a trade-in. They want way too much money for their trade-in. They always think their trade-in is worth more than it really is. They do like the really silly stuff, like go to get Kelley Blue Book, and they actually think that matters. And they have to look at it and go,
sale.
yeah, it's like,
My car is worth $25,000.
It's like, well, Kelley Blue Book, they always say, Kelley Blue Book can write you a check then because they're not located on this street, and we know what we can get for it here, the type of buyers we have here. So each dealership's going to be a little bit different. And, how long is that thing going to sit on the lot and all that kind of stuff? What are they going to have to do to it? They have to look it over. So a used car is totally different. Do they smoke in it? Do they do, and do they have enough buyers for it? And they know their buyers, how fast they can move that thing. And so there's a lot of things. So if the manager's been around there for a while, they're going to know. But there's that, of course. But yeah, it is interesting. They want way too much for it, right? But now when they go to sell that same car, if they keep it, the dealership, the next person wants to pay way too little for it. So and then with new cars, they want to pay invoice. They don't go to Walmart and places and say, "Hey, I want to pay cost." You're like, why?
Right.
They think they're getting ripped off if they pay cost. So now, my thought as just a sales guy is, after being around a lot and talking to different managers, and Hutch, maybe you could answer, you could fill this in, because he was behind the scenes. He knew. He was like the wizard behind the scenes. Hutch was, so he comment on the numbers better than I could. But I think it's one of those, they have to try to hide as much profit as they can, because even the news is trying to tell people how to figure out the invoice price on new cars, and it's published. So they're breaking down all these costs. They have to hide something so they can at least make something on it, because they have to make whatever they can on one car, because they probably lost money on a different car just to get that sale, to get their monthly bonus for volume. So they need 10 cars. They need 10 cars out that month, or they need of a certain brand, and they'll get a bonus from the manufacturer. Maybe it's 15 for that dealership, or 20, or some of them it's like 50 or 100. They reach that, they're already like a couple cars away. They're like, I don't care what I sell it for. I just need that because we're going to get a bonus as a dealership once we reach that, and we're at the end of the month. And let's start giving them away. But so there's different stuff. So there's money. I mean, I don't even know. There's money hidden in different places, so they can, new cars are different. But so Hutch, you could make more comments on that.
Well, there's really not, as far as money hidden. Every new
Your
vehicle
voices.
every new vehicle has a manufacturer holdback. And it's different per manufacturer. Maybe it's 1.5% to 2.5% of the MSRP of the vehicle. That's a holdback that the dealers get when the loan is, or when the vehicle gets paid off with the manufacturer. So if they're floor planning the vehicle, so in other words, if you're with Honda and the dealer has all their cars financed for themselves, they're financed through Honda. Honda holds the paper on all the inventory, interest free for 90 days. So that's why they're trying to move these cars, get the old inventory out, because they're getting a free float on that money. So
right.
Once that vehicle is paid off, the manufacturer will give that kickback of holdback back to the dealer on the vehicle. So, I mean, most buyers that come in nowadays are pretty savvy. They know what invoices are. They're familiar with the vehicle. Most of them already know everything about the vehicle. All the questions they're going to ask, they've already done the homework. They already know. They typically know more than the salespeople, and probably even the sales managers of what on the vehicles, because they've researched compression, things that I could care less about. But they look at all these little things, and
they're focused on one vehicle, one or two vehicles, and the salesperson and the staff have to focus on all of the models they sell, and then by the time you get to know all the options, which are complicated, the next model year is coming out and they've changed some of the options. So it's the guys who have been around for years who finally just got used to it. They're like, they get a rhythm down, and then they know. But now there's so much high turnover that you don't. Your chances are you're getting a new sales guy, and so they have to have a system set up where it's like the guy who's fumbling and doesn't know the answers. It's like you got to make sure that, like Eric, to answer one question, why it's like because there's so much turnover, and at that point it's like they need a system where they can at least get that customer TO'd, make sure that they're talking to a manager, so that new guy who doesn't know anything isn't blowing out a perfectly good customer who might be ready to buy that day. So there's so much turnover that, I mean, it's like they play baseball cards, like trading baseball cards with salespeople. Other dealerships come in and they try to hire, they take them away, and we'll pay you better. They meet up on the side somewhere. It's like,
it seems like
it is. It's annoying. It's horrible.
I don't mean to repeat myself, but it seems like if you have a sticker price, and if you're leasing that car, and you have great credit, say 760 or better, why is coming down with a final monthly payment so difficult? I don't get it, and I struggle with that when I lease all my cars. I mean, it should be crystal clear. Yeah. And if I'm buying a new Honda, I've bought a lot of Hondas recently, and I've got a great deal on my Passport, which I'll probably end up keeping, refinancing through Honda, but because there's like no miles on it. But when I go to the dealership, it's like, okay, I purchased it for $43,000. I'm going to put down nothing, and I'm not going to pay any of my fees. Roll them all in. I want to do a sign and drive. Your fees are X amount. The MSRP is X amount. Just give me an idea within so many dollars what my lease payment's going to be per month for 36 months. Honda's typically 36 months for all their cars, and they struggle with it. I was like, I don't get it.
Are you going to the same dealership?
It's Vic. Yeah, well, I shouldn't even say it, but it's in Plymouth.
So it's okay. So there may be an answer.
Clear.
There may be an answer though to that if it's the same dealership. Hey Hutch, what do you think about this? If I mention this, that if it's the same dealership and they're struggling, do you think maybe they have a process where they're like, they really like to get people in that finance office before they give an answer. They don't want your tone to be set at, $250 or $350 a month or $350 or $450 a month, because they want they need that ability to keep your mind open so they can try to sell as much product to you as they can, whether it's a finance product or extra protection packages or warranties or extras, or they just want to. They're trying to make
pinstriping $400.
It might be that if you went to a different dealership.
Because I've worked for that garbage.
Yeah, as a salesperson, I've gotten that answer you're talking about very quickly. If they say, "Hey, if your credit's here, and you put this much money down, you'd be right about here in your payment." I mean, it's like they know it right off. So chances are, their finance guy knows, and they just maybe they get mad at that salesperson. I mean, I don't know, Hutch, are you there? You could hear you.
Yeah, the only time the salesperson is going to talk lease price or even finance prices as far as payments and things like that. They're trained not to talk numbers at all.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I really don't.
Because what's going to happen is when you go in there to lease vehicles, and funny you say Hondas because I started with Honda in 1992, and I sold a lot of Hondas, leased a lot of Hondas to people.
But I love my Hondas.
Oh, in 1995 I sold 652 new Hondas. Not including all the used vehicles I sold every month.
Right.
I was running over 50, average over.
Hey, Hutch, do what you were doing before when your voice was louder.
All right, I'll try to. Is that better?
Yeah, it's a lot better.
Oh, I got to yell a little more. And so, but the salespeople are trained not to talk price, because what's going to happen is the sales manager's like, okay, well, this person wants to lease this vehicle, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pencil a number. They're going to give you a number that doesn't have taxes included into it. And it's going to have a sign and drive. It's going to have an oil change package. It's going to have a lease care package. It's going to have a tire and wheel coverage. It's going to have every little thing that they can put on that lease, and they're going to pencil. They call it a pencil. They're going to send the salesperson back with a number.
Yeah.
Instead of being $450 a month, that may maybe what it should be, they're going to come back with a number that says, "Oh, you're at 535," and you're like, "What the hell? This shouldn't be
No.
535."
Does any of that money go back to the salesperson, or is it just strictly for the dealership?
The salesperson gets paid on the overall gross profit. They don't get paid on holdback. Well,
Okay.
Most dealerships, any of them that I've worked for, they don't get paid on a holdback. But
Right.
Yeah, and each one's different on whether they give you money if you sell like a protection package. Some dealerships will
Yeah, I don't
give the
buy any
salesperson
of that
something.
stuff.
Well, you're leasing them. When you lease them, you're under warranty the full time that you're driving it, and you want to get in and out, and there was the normal bump that dealers like to do also, is they're going to say, "Oh,
You
hey,
disappearing again.
damn it!" They're saying, "Hey, your payments, $429 a month," and then
Right.
you're like, "Okay, that sounds good."
That's
and you
good.
get in the finance department, and then they're saying, "Well, it is plus tax." And
Sure.
So now they're trying to bump you tax, but they already calculated it taxes in. So now
So
they
the-
just bumped you another 6%, 6.5% of your payment.
So they're
They
setting
hold
up the
another
bump.
back, and they sell you on the payment. So
Yeah.
there's,
So
a, lot
yeah,
of,
they're-
there's a lot of chicanery that goes on, and boy, I tell you, I could go on for hours and hours and hours about all of it. So,
Oh yeah, they're setting
Yeah,
you up
it's
for the
frustrating.
bump. They're setting you up. That's why they don't want to be straightforward, because once your mind is set on that, it makes it so much harder to increase that price. Once you think, hey, this is all I need, they like you said, they're trying to set up, and they're it's all about expectations too. And each dealership's different that I've worked for, the management, what they like you to do. And some of them wanted you to talk price, but only the price that the management mentioned. I've worked at others where they're like, don't talk price at all. Save that for the management. They'll have managers who do nothing but price. They said, just get him in the door and make friends with them. I had one manager tell me, he said, "Tom, you like to talk." He said, "This is perfect." He goes, "I want you to keep the people there as long as you can so they don't go to a competitor. Just talk about anything.
Yeah.
Just keep them busy."
I think people are getting more savvy, though. They're starting to catch on to what's going on. At least I am, and I get frustrated with it. I'm like, and the other thing is, too, is that
It's all
with my
changing.
father being, with a General Motors, I had a General Motors discount with any car that I bought, so it was a set price. At least that's the way I looked at it. Like if I go in and buy a Chevy Trail Boss for $50,000, then with a General Motors discount, I get that with no haggling. Just tell me what the lease price is, and that's what it is, But that's the way I always kind of looked at it. But
that's the
yeah.
advantage of having the employee purchase, because with an employee purchase, or that green sheet, or the green sheet was Chrysler, but you get your employee price. The dealer can't charge more than that price.
Right.
They also have to take their service fee that they would normally have at anywhere from nothing to $699 service fee on every car.
The dealer fee.
Yeah. And it was like
say
pinstriping
$100.
fee and prep fee and
Right. It's $100. You can't charge more than $100. If you charge more than $100, the manufacturer will take that money away from the dealer and not let them have it. Basically.
Right.
Yeah, there's something to be said now. I mean, how would you? There's something I'd like to add in too. Is that I've learned is that in that it's a complicated business. It seems like it's not, but out of a need to survive, it really became complicated in the way that if you try to, for one thing. The next generations that are coming up, people, like you said, Eric, they're getting more and more savvy. They don't want it. They don't need it. The internet has changed every industry, and the car business and the sales has changed. Now there's like the loyalty's changed and everything, and you're talking to a competing dealer while you're sitting in front at the desk with a salesperson or a manager while you're chatting on your phone with someone else, checking out prices and then making a deal with someone else, and you're haggling with more than one dealership. The customer, if they're pretty savvy, they're doing that. But at the same time, if you try to take away a lot of this stuff, if you walked into a dealership and they said, "Here's the price," don't worry, there's no problems at all. You don't have to worry about the haggling. Here's what you pay. There's a huge amount of people out there who would say, "I'm getting screwed." And so they have to
might hold-
pretend. There are times, the best way I'll say it is, there have been times I've been told by managers, and Hutch, you might have been one of them at one point, in a particular deal where they're like, this is too good of a price, we have to start a little higher, or something. We got to make them feel like they got a good deal, because even though this is the best price they're going to get anywhere in the region, and you know the customer where they're living, you know, they was there in Wisconsin, say, they're like, they're not going to get a better price on this car anywhere, and they know for certain, and they'll say, but if we give it to them, they're not going to be happy, because they'll feel like there's more. They're never happy.
well-
They're like, I give me your bottom price, but if you do, they're like, they want more off, so they're never happy. They think, why was that so easy? I overpaid. And like, no, you got the best price you'll ever get on that car from anyone within a 100-mile range, or maybe even further, like, you know, within a few states or something like that, a 500-mile range. And so the expectations are so set. It's kind of like if you went to another country and said, stop haggling, you know, down in Mexico, and you're, you know, buying stuff, or other many countries out, you know, in Europe, they're like, no, there's something wrong if you don't haggle for the price. Now it's so set in the behavior that if you don't haggle for the price, they think there's something wrong. So it's like they almost have to start higher, and like start higher, and then we'll go down. That way they'll get the best price so they feel like, and let them feel like they got it. I've had that. I've had a manager tell me that in the past before, more than once. We're like, yeah, just let them push you down to that, and that way they feel like they got you, because they know that customer. Maybe, yeah, like based on that customer, they're like, there's a bullheaded customer, like, or some guy who's trying to show off for his girlfriend. I've dealt with those, and it's like, oh my god, like you got to make him feel like he won, and even though he was going to win, he's got to know it and feel it, and then, hey, he got you. He walks away feeling like he got a great deal. And you could have given him that great deal right away and just get him out the door, but he won't feel like it. He wants to feel like he beat you in front of his girlfriend, and or whoever, you know, whoever they're trying to impress, or just themselves, you know. And it literally, they won't be happy. They literally won't be happy. The survey will be horrible. They'll come back, and the survey will be horrible. Like they felt like they got ripped off because it was too easy to get that good deal. So they want the good deal, hassle free, but they don't really want it.
Guys, I got to jump off here. I haven't seen my wife all day, and it's Mother's Day. So if she's going to bed, I better go and see her for a couple minutes before she goes to bed.
All right. Hey, Hutch, thanks for joining in.
Next time I'll have a headset.
Yeah, we can hear you better now, but that'd be perfect.
Well, because now I'm standing outside yelling. I don't want neighbors looking at me now.
Well, thanks for
you guys.
Yeah, and thanks for all your what you contributed, all that knowledge. That's fantastic.
Well, I've got a lot of it. We could talk about this another night. We can go for hours, but we don't have to go for hours. But I could.
No,
and there's a lot of stuff I could talk about. And
we were thinking on keeping it to like maybe an hour or so, maybe an hour if possible. But I know we're already over that hour, so.
Well,
but
good. Hey, you guys have a good, and we'll talk, Tommy. It's good talking to you.
Yeah,
it was nice meeting you, Hutch.
Nice meeting you. Talk to you later.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys got a chance to talk because you both have experience in the mortgage business and real estate. All right, Hutch.
Turned out to be a good podcast here, Tommy B.
Yeah, and I want to relate something before we do jump off, if you don't mind. Is just that we could talk about that because we're going over more time than we planned. Is I guess that we kind of got off on a discussion. It's still related to what needs to be improved, but we're really just talking about the process. So I guess to keep with what the subject is what needs to be improved. Just to recap, it would be how can we improve that in the car industry, say, to give the customers what they want, and yet have them feel happy to get what they want, because there seems to be that kind of disconnect. Like I mentioned, if they get the deal too quickly, they will. And then I would too. I'd be like, what's wrong here? Why did they agree so quickly? Unless you knew the people there and you've built up trust over years, those are the ones that the dealerships usually like to just go straight for the good deal, because they know that customer's coming back. They've already bought 5 cars from them. At least they should. They should be treating that customer. And if they do their service there, they're like, hey, we'll give you good deals on service. You're an inexpensive customer because it doesn't take advertising money to bring them in. They're the best ones that should be quick as a snap with those people. Like all the questions you said, they should be answered even before they get to the dealership. They should know them well enough just with today's technology, just give the answer. So maybe that's something we could people can, if they comment, you listeners, if you're hearing this in the future, put your comments down and think, how would you improve this? Because there's the problem. If you do make it too easy, the customers might think something's wrong. So how do you improve it? And how do you improve the trading in a dealership where, you don't, it's difficult to hire just a specific, maybe that's the way, you have to hire a trainer. But you do that, there's an extra cost. If you don't, then the people who can train are the ones who are in charge of the deals that are always getting pulled off for a deal, and the training's not consistent. So maybe that's how we keep with the theme of this this show. But right. I didn't get a chance to talk about trucking, and we don't have enough time. But I will say a real quick one is training is tough in the trucking business I went through. It's necessary. I don't know how they'd change it, but if they did, because they need truckers. So anyone out there, there's trucking jobs everywhere. If you get a CDL, the training can be rough for long haul trucking. Once you're done with it, it's actually better. But they got to do it. But man, if they could find a way to do that, there's a lot of people who leave during training.
Sure.
Not the schooling. It's after training because they got to live with someone else, and if they don't get along, and you're together all the time. I mean, imagine you're going to the bathroom together. You're not in the stall, but you're leaving the truck, walking into the truck stop together. Yeah, you're eating together. You go into the showers. I mean, you're separate showers, but you walk there. You're like, man, they're always together. It's like, even if you like the person, you're like, I need some me time, even just like a little bit. So, anyways, to recap, that's my pet peeve with training in the trucking industry is I know they need to do it. I don't know how they'd fix it without spending a bundle of money. But if it could be fixed, that would help a lot. A lot of truckers would not leave during training. They'd retain more, and it'd be a beautiful thing. So I hope they can find a way to improve it without hurting the business. Real quick, what do you think of real estate? Is there anything, without going on about it, that you would want, that you think we could talk about maybe another time that could be improved in real estate?
Yeah, that's a show in itself. So real estate's changing quickly, and it's.
Would you say training? Is training a tough one there too, or?
When you look at real estate and what's going on in the real estate industry, is at least in the Detroit area, it's pretty easy to obtain a license in real estate to sell real estate. But what they don't teach you is how to negotiate contracts. They don't teach you how a house is built. They don't teach you the deficiencies in a house, what needs to be replaced. They just it's basically kind of the general overview of real estate, and as long as you pass your test, you can go ahead and sell real estate. Where
you kind of sink or swim, basically.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that get into it and they think it's really easy. Like, oh yeah, I'll get a customer. They want to buy through me or sell through me, and I'll make my 3% commission. But they don't realize all the pitfalls that go along with selling real estate. In other words, there's things you have to negotiate as far as how much time is needed to sell the house. There's things that are needed like updates, like, I found asbestos in some of the heating ducts or whatever that needs to be remediated, or there's mold in the attic or whatever, and all has to be negotiated. And you're finding a lot of these people that are younger that has never negotiated a contract or don't know anything about homes. They struggle, and they're not representing the buyers or the sellers correctly, or as best as I could.
Yeah.
Somebody like me, that I've built homes, I've been around homes all my life. I have done mortgages and I've sold real estate. Pretty much turnkey. I can say, okay, I'm going to sell you a home that you want to buy. In other words, if there's a home that, like the subdivision that we used to live in, there's a lot of ranches, and if you look at the ranches, I could tell them, okay, this furnace hasn't been updated in 20 years. Or the insulation in the attic is not sufficient. You're going to have to update that, in the upcoming future to keep your costs down. Or the floors need to be sanded and refinished or whatever. And those are all costs. But, I can go ahead and show these people all this stuff. But what it really comes down to is, do these people want to buy the home? Can they afford to buy the home? Are they willing to put money into the home? And, with all that being said, does a transaction happen? It's all part of sales. You can show them exactly what this home is about. You can say, okay, are you ready to purchase? Do you realize what you're up against? and if they're ready to pull the trigger, they can, and you kind of move forward that way. But there's a lot of variables that go into real estate, and that's what having a background in construction management and building and mortgages, you can kind of help pave that path and say, okay, if you buy this home, this is what you're up against, or if you buy that home, that's what you're up against, because every home's a little bit different. Your home that you grew up in might be a little bit different than the home I grew up in. Even like your home probably had central air. My mom and dad's home doesn't. Has baseboard
you mean
heat.
Where we grew up? Yeah, ours didn't either. No.
Yeah. So there's a lot of pros and cons to every house, and I've been looking to put in central air into this house, but to do the conversion is $20,000. So when you're trying to sell somebody on this home, well, everything else is really nice, but it doesn't have central air. Well, how much does central air cost? Well, it costs about $20,000. Are those people willing to buy a home and put in central air afterwards? Now, if I represent them correctly and they respect my opinion and my knowledge, they're going to refer me out. That's how I continue business in the future. But if I try to kind of, I hate to say this word, but screw them just for that purchase, and they don't appreciate that, and they think they're misrepresented, they're never going to refer me out to anybody else. So that's the same thing with mortgages. When, let's say you and your wife are going for a mortgage, and that mortgage officer misrepresents you and says, well, yeah, I can get you into a house all day long. Then you put an offer in a house, and then all of a sudden it doesn't go through because of whatever reasons. You're not going to respect that loan officer for what he told you or she told you and the path that you took. If you know all the pitfalls up front, you know what you're up against, then you could save more money, you can put more money down, you can improve your credit score, you can buy a better house. There's all kinds of things. And the way I get return business is exactly from that. Like, this guy walked me through a house, told me everything about this house. This is the reason to buy this house, or this is the reason maybe not to consider this house. And when these people know that I've got their back, they refer me out. And I don't need marketing. I don't need marketing to do that. Because they know that, I'm looking out for their best interest. I don't want to go away with trying to stuff them into a house that's all broken and needs a bunch of work. And, I made a sale. Great. These people are miserable. They'll never refer me out. And a lot of these people, a lot of these loan officers, or I'm sorry, a lot of these real estate agents will spend thousands and thousands of dollars every month to get leads, but they can't take care of the leads. They can't, they don't know how to walk these people through the buying process and have them buy a house that's worthwhile. They're just looking for, their commission and to walk away and move on to the next one.
So that would be So you're kind of in keeping with the show. As far as that whole what needs to be improved. It sounds that kind of almost fits into also training as well. Setting expectations for new agents.
Yeah, your broker should.
Yeah, how to do
your
that.
Broker should help you out with that.
And if they did do that, how much better would their business be if all the agents working for that broker were working at that level?
Yeah. It's
I mean,
there's so many levels. And Tom, I think what you're getting at too is, and not to cut you off, but the whole premise of this show is, how does business relate to everything that we do? And whether it's mortgages or real estate or transportation or selling things overseas, it all comes together with being honest and working together as a team to get these things done and feeling like you have an honest deal,
Yeah, because that's the whole premise of the Made podcast. It is, how business affects our lives in many different ways. And this one just kind of focused, on businesses that we've worked for or we've shopped at, or just somehow we encountered them. You're like, what's something that could be improved? Because there's a lot of things, people walk into stores and they see the same thing and they're like, how ridiculous is that? Why do they put the bathrooms over there? Why do they do that? Why do they, or whatever it is, it's like, it could turn into something like that. I mean, it didn't on this episode, but we might have a different subject next episode. That's right. It's still related to the whole thing of how, like you said, how business affects our lives, and here's a different aspect of how does business affect our lives. So
I'll tell you
what I mean?
what. I'll tell you this real quick. Is I sold a lot of real estate, and when you sell real estate and you're making 3% on a $500,000 house, you're making $15,000. You're walking away with probably 10 or 12,000 based on your.
Based on your what?
And these people are excited to be in these homes, and I'm saying is that when you sell real estate,
Oh yeah.
you're making all this money, and these people know that you're making all this money. They want something back, and I'm not saying a gift card to McDonald's or whatever. But what really helps though is I buy a lot of, and this is kind of going off on a tangent, is I buy a lot of stuff like off Etsy. And Etsy's a bunch of mom and pop people, and it's not all mom and pop, but there's a lot of mom and pop people that sell stuff on Etsy, and they're kind of onesie twosies. And like if I realize that, when I'm selling a house to a customer and their kids are involved in hockey or something, and their favorite team is Detroit Red Wings or something, I'll buy them something, a one-off item off Etsy that has to do with the Red Wings that you can't buy at a store. And that goes so far, like that you thought about their kids, and you went to a company that makes these things exactly.
Yeah,
and that goes a long way. That when you follow up in 6 months and say, "Hey, how's the house doing? How's your kids doing? Your kids still doing the hockey, blah 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 blah." That's how you get your referrals. And it's unfortunate that in some business that maybe you might be in or other people might be in, it's not that personal. It's more
it's
bottom
less.
line, and it's more numbers and
that relates.
And
that kind of relates to something we mentioned on a previous podcast of how it how that personal, the internet makes things easier, but that takes away a little bit of that personal touch. That personal representation. Now there's no need, but I think we talked about that last time. The question was posed: do you think that might start coming back? To some degree, you're not going to get rid of internet, but people at some degree are going to start to crave that personal touch. They'll have fun. It's like a fad. It's like a cycle that goes through in business and how we operate as a society. We say, like a new toy. Like, this is amazing. Look, we can talk to people on the other side of the world with an email in one click of a button. Boom. We're communicating. It's great. Then like after a while, like decades go by, and I think I just miss that personal touch we used to have. I still like the quick and the ease, but how can we bring the personal touch back? And that's part of what drove me to say I want to create a marketplace, but I want somehow to have that personal touch still there, at least that's some aspect of it, for those who want it. Not everybody wants that anymore. They want the quick, deal, and that's where it's perfect for a marketplace like TradeMarketGlobal.com on the marketplace. And but the personal touch, like the podcast, but then also for us, if it's a bigger deal, being able to represent them as salespeople, for their deals, in person, which that'd be something you'd be really good at too,
Right? Yeah. No,
but hey, we got to, I know we got to bring this thing to a close, and we're going on a long show, but I know Eric and I can talk about this. Yeah, you and I can talk about this forever.
Yeah, we certainly can. I'll let you close on out, and I'm going to jump off your podcast, and I'll talk to you next week or so.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll get back on any podcast you can jump on. I love it. I need you on. I think it's fantastic, and I love listening to you talk on the podcast because I love listening to you talk on your podcast as well. When you're talking about music, and you and Bill are talking about music and low standards and pours, everyone. So it is
POURS.
Yeah, like pouring a drink, and it's more casual and all that. I love listening to you guys talk, but now it's a different side of you, hearing you talk, in an intelligent fashion, that you're talking about a particular subject, and it's a different side of you, which is the real side, that I know, the intelligent. But the other ones, you got to have the fun side. So everyone out there, if you want, to see the fun side too, go to Low Standards and Pours and pick through all your 170 or 50, 70, whatever, huge amount of episodes, and you'll get all kinds. None of it's
rehearsed or edited. It's just live, and we just talk, and
it's fun.
We talk about music, and that's it. It's just whatever comes out, and
it's
trade.
Wants
to dial in, we just kind of talk, And
it's trade. You're trading that for, whatever it is. I don't know. I mean, your enjoyment for their enjoyment. And, yeah, it works out fantastic. So, all right. Well, thanks, Eric, for coming on again. I appreciate it
hey,
so
Tom,
much.
I will talk to you very soon. And at the very least, we'll probably maybe see you next Sunday.
All right. That would be fantastic.
All right,
thanks,
close
Eric.
out your show. Good show. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks,
All right,
Eric.
see ya.
Yep. You have a great evening.
Bye. You too. Bye.
All right, everybody. Hey, thank you so much for those of you who stay, tuned in, or if you're listening to this recording in the future. Thank you for listening to the entire show. If you're still listening at this point, you're really hanging in there, and you must be interested. I know these subjects mainly interested in are for people who are really interested in business and just these kind of discussions with some. A few people, men or women, whoever it is. So far, it's just a few of us guys. Hopefully, there's going to be more people coming on. But I said ordinary men and women in general. We would be talking, having some good discussions. We're going to bring more people on as we grow. And we're probably going to do maybe even what I'd like to do is do some quick interviews on our YouTube channel with someone and then have them be a guest speaker on the podcast. So you can kind of get a look at them and do a quick little video, interview of them, not too long, and but then have an extended discussion with that same person the same week on the podcast. So everybody, we're going to close this out. We'll be back again next Sunday, every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central Time. This is the Biz Meet Global Podcast. I'm Tommy B. I'm your host. I'll be your host most likely every time, but just let you know, there may be a time when I'm a guest. I'm more of a guest. Well, I'll still be the host, but I can't help that. I got way too much to say, right? And I love it too much. So, but hey, I'll take a back seat and listen to other guest hosts talk. I love it. Love hearing them talk. So you're going to hear that. Maybe some of my other partners jump on, and other people I've known, and other colleagues, many people. So this is going to be one of those kind of shows. We have a structure we like to talk about, but we're mostly unstructured and speaking from the heart. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. And again, if you want to start your own discussion, go to bizmeetglobal.com, our social networking site that is free, and start your own private group or public group, or just join in and create discussion. Advertise your products, whatever you want, your services. Talk about anything related to business and the world related to business. Right? If you have products that you would like to sell, then please go to our marketplace, which is trademarketglobal.com. That's where you can sell or advertise and sell your products and services. Thanks again, everybody. Again, our podcast website here is bizmeetglobal.podbean.com. See you next Sunday night. Thanks, everybody.